Hello everyone! We got some fresh new questions in, and a lot of you are curious about what the next expansion might hold, so I figured to group them all up and get them done in one go. Starting off with Noble. What do you think the next WoW expansion will be, most likely? And also, what do you personally hope it will be? I want South Seas with N'Zoth. Hope it isn't answered in this video. I'm personally good with the two expansions that are most likely going to happen next. Either the story is going to take us beyond Argus and into the Great Dark Beyond, explore new planets, visiting whole new races, and find out what else the Warcraft universe has to offer. Or the most likely option, like 90% certain, we'll go back home after the events in Argus to find out that the old gods have broken out of their prisons.
5 keys to open our way. 5 torches to light our path.
An interesting idea that they could work with is that time does not work the same the deeper you go into the twisting nether. This is something that they established during the Hunter artifact questline. Imagine a bit of a time skip before we go back home. Imagine what they could do with like 5 or 10 years away from the setting that we have right now. Could be a great opportunity to switch things up a bit. Now it's anyone's guess what will go down in the next expansion, but the Blizzard key art, it does feature Jaina promptly in the middle, which is great news for everyone that's been asking, where did Jaina go? She left Dalaran and the Council of Six in Khadgar's hands after they voted and allowed Aphis and the Horde back into the city. After that, no real word from her, so all we have is speculation. In Hearthstone, they added a Death Knight version of her, and the Dreadlord skin has made it into Heroes of the Storm, which had some of you wonder if they were dropping hints for the story in WoW. But I personally think that you're just taking this joke to its maximum level. There have been many alternate skins in Heroes before, different takes on what characters could have done, and Dreadlord Jaina, that seems to be one of those, as they have confirmed in an interview that she's not a Dreadlord. So what could her role be in the next expansion? Well, the one place that's strongly connected to her, that is Kul'tiras, the kingdom of her father, which even had some data mined armor. Her one brother died fighting the Hordes, her father died during Warcraft 3, and the other sibling that's been retconned out of the story. That doesn't mean that she automatically becomes the leader though, as Kul'tiras is a city-state and not a proper kingdom, as in leadership it does not automatically pass on through a family. They're all about making life on the sea, which Jaina has never really been established as being amazing at, considering that she spent most of her time studying in Dalaran, not to mention that letting their previous leader die, her father, that might have some consequences. If we are truly going to deal with the threat like the old god N'Zoth, rumored to be beneath the waves of Azeroth, if we are going to see the other side of Azeroth or possibly even deal with the Naga, then having a kingdom with a war fleet and plenty of experience on the high seas, that is definitely a benefit. I do wonder what Jaina's mindset is going to be when it comes to the factions, since it's kind of been all over the place. She started off as trying to walk the line between both, often seeing the Horde in a better light than most people of the Alliance did. The bombing of Fedamore then pushed her towards wanting revenge, which didn't go through with, and instead she picked up leadership of the Kirin Tor, proclaiming that they would be a beacon of light, shining the way for the rest of the world, showing that the Horde and Alliance can indeed work together. The Divine Bell and the Purge of Dalaran later, and we have her pushing Varian into dismantling the Horde after the Siege of Orgrimmar, something that he didn't agree with, which left her fuming. War crimes, in which she ended up not being hostile towards the Horde, but definitely unwilling to work together during Warlords of Draenor. She even warned Khadgar not to trust the Horde. And then there's Legion, where Khadgar puts that all to the side and focuses on the war against the Legion. How will she act towards the Horde and Alliance now? Is she going to hold on to old hatreds, or will the threat of the old gods show her that working together is needed? I don't know. I'd imagine that if the threat of the Legion is not big enough to push her towards working together, would something like the old gods be enough? I doubt it. If it was up to me, I'd have her either as completely neutral, opening up to the possibility for others to join her with that, becoming some sort of buccaneer or sellsword, offering services to both factions, which would allow Alliance and Horde to queue up with each other. Or I'd take one of the few things that she still cares about in this world and use that as leverage to have her ask for help. Imagine, for example, a massive battle where she's all high and mighty, thinking that they can do it all on their own, only to see Anduin being kidnapped by the enemy, all because she was too arrogant to accept help from both sides.
The boy king serves at the master's table. 3 lives will he offer you.
Which flows into the next question. Hey Noble, like I said before, I like very much the trolls, and I want to ask you, what do you think will happen to them in the next expansion? Who will take the place of Vol'jin? Another topic that would fit very well with this expansion, those are the trolls, especially God King Rastakhan, who's the leader of the Zandalari trolls. Those that have played or missed Pandaria, you might remember a whole lot of trolls showing up, trying to make use of the opportunity and claim the land of Pandaria. Prophet Zul had seen a vision in which Deathwing changed the face of Azeroth, and Zandalar would slowly sink sink beneath the waves. He warned his king of what was to come. He told him to unite with the other troll tribes and abandon their doomed homeland. They didn't listen, and Rastakhan grew tired of Zul and his troubling visions. Just to shut him up, he gave him their largest ship so that he and his followers they could search for a new land if his visions became a reality, and as we know, they actually did. The Zandalari people turned to their king for help, but there was only one Zandalari actually equipped to help them, which was the Prophet and the mighty war fleet that he had assembled while their king sat idle. They went about calling different troll tribes to arms, uniting them, setting them all up to getting their asses kicked by us. Now Zandalar, that has been said to be sinking beneath the waves, but apparently it's not entirely gone yet, so it could make for a great questing area. Imagine partying with one of the earliest troll races out there, earning their allegiances and adding them to the horde, offering them a whole new land to live in. This could even open up more customization for the troll race, and having King Rastakhan as your faction leader, that would be pretty damn badass. Right now though, the only real troll that stands out for potential new faction leader, that would be Rokan. He was part of the team during Warcraft 3, and he's been with the horde ever since. Speaking of trolls, next question. Do you think that the Loa that told Vol'jin to make Sylvanas war chief was actually whispers from the old god? And if that's the case, does that mean Vol'jin will have a major role in the next expansion somehow? I think most can agree that Vol'jin's death in Legion, that it was an absolute waste of potential. He was made war chief at the end of Mr. Pandaria, a troll war chief of the horde. For the first time, it wasn't an orc. Imagine the possibilities. And all we really got was him congratulating us on building up our garrison in Draenor. And before we knew it, he was stabbed by the demons and taken out. Usually, I'm not a fan of bringing back dead characters, since it really devalues killing them off. But for Vol'jin, I wouldn't mind seeing them make an exception, as him maybe coming back as a Loa, maybe something with Rastakhan coming back to let us know that things are not what they're supposed to be. Near death, it was apparently the spirits who told him that Sylvanas was supposed to be the war chief. Many would not understand, but she had to step out of the shadows and lead. The Banshee Queen asked the horde who amongst them will help her avenge him, to which all of them cheered and the story continued. But what exactly has the new war chief done to avenge Vol'jin or even benefit the horde? We saw her play a massive role in Stormheim, where she was making deals with Helya. She tried to subjugate Aegir, the Titan Watcher, presumably to gain the power to make more Valkyr and keep herself out of Hell, while also being able to create more Forsaken. Those plans, they were stopped by Greymane and the Alliance, but besides a very weak conflict between the Alliance and the Horde, she hasn't played a big part in the story. Bit of a shame really. I had high hopes for her story, especially if you look at the Legion website. It describes it as her having to make a choice, how far she'd go to protect her people, and whether they're more precious to her than her soul. It seems that they've decided to drop that story direction in favor of focusing on others, but I personally would not like to see another war chief as an enemy to the worlds. Before the Cataclysm, a lot of people actually thought that it was going to be her fate. She made a lot more sense to be the bad guy over Garrosh, yet it was the orc that was placed in that role. Part of the reason, that's probably her big fan base. The Banshee Queen has a lot of devoted followers, so what can you do with such a character? I personally go in the direction of manipulation and things pulling strings from behind the curtains. The whole reason why she's placed the curse upon death upon others, why she's still fighting, that is because after she killed herself, she figured out that the afterlife is not eternal bliss. She ended up in a realm of torment after throwing herself from the top of Icecrown and landing on the Saronite spikes below. And Saronite, that is the blood of the old god Yogg-saron, the god of death. It was the Valkyr that took her place in Hell and were even kind enough to create more Forsaken for her, all just because that would set her free from Bolvar's control. So something in the direction of either the Lich King or Yogg-saron unknowingly manipulating her. These so-called spirits that called out her name to become the new war chief, that was them as well, and Vol'jin, in the form of a Loa, he comes back to set the record straight. He points us towards those responsible, and as the Horde tries to go out to help the war chief, Greymane and the Alliance, they're completely blind, and they go on the assault. It's about time that the Alliance gets fractured again. Ever since the Cataclysm, they've been pretty much a united force with very little going wrong. Of course, there was the death of Varian, but we also have Malfurion and Tyrande together, and they're married. We have the Council of Three Hammers with Moira showing her loyalty. We have Velen and Anduin, of course, shining the light through the darkness, and even Mekatork, who took care of his old rival. It's Greymane that would make for a perfect antagonist. Seeing his history with Sylvanas, it's not unreasonable for him to want to see her dead. Yet as the story progresses, we find out that she's not perfect, she's not suddenly an innocent character, but there are reasons behind her actions. There are forces at play that want to see her keep on going with developing more plague, creating more undeads, and even be in the spotlight as the role of war chief. This could even be combined with the Lich King not wanting to see Yogg-saron in his domain, claiming full dominance over Northrend, and increases his forces in the process. Something in that direction. Next question. Hello Noble, thank you for playing video games instead of me, smiley face. What do you think about Chris Metzens' absence and how the Warcraft lore will change? And next to that, we also have, what happened to Thrall this expansion, and do you think he will have a bigger part in the next one? These two questions kinda touch on the same subject, which is the news of last year with Chris Metzens deciding to retire. He did a fair few of the voices in-game, including Thrall, and of course he played a huge part in the development of the game. I've seen some topics on the forums as well, with people no longer enjoying the direction that the story takes, and linking it to Metzens leaving the company. When you saw this man on stage during BlizzCon or during interviews, you could just see the passion and the nerdiness and the love for the game. It was oozing out of him and shining. He was a massive inspiration and motivation, but surely nobody believes that he was the only one deciding where the story was going to go. There are teams that work on the direction. It's often planned out years in advance. Not to mention that the whole story we got going on right now, Illidan's return and redemption story, that is something that fans requested all the way back during 2011, and Metzens himself, he was very enthusiastic.
Is Illidan still at the top of Black Temple?
You want them back, don't you?
Could we just bring them all back, Chris? Is that cool?
I wouldn't say all. Actually, we're just in a panel for the broad WoW Q&A, and someone brought up, you ever going to bring Illidan back? And so we just kind of asked, do you guys think we should bring Illidan back? Based on that response, I think it's likely. We'll have to figure it out.
He has said that he'd be more than willing to come back and do more voiceover work, but for the moment, he's handed over his Doomhammer to the player, and they're the ones that take the spotlight. He's dealing with the emotional ramifications of having to take care of Garrosh during Warlords of Draenor, something that actually affected his connection to the elements. I personally don't really mind Thrall taking a backseat, since he was very prominent during the Cataclysm. They turned him from a badass former slave gladiator into War Chief of the Horde, trying to carve out a piece of the land for his people in a hostile world with bad blood between the factions. Yet, at the same time, he was still trying to find calm amidst the storm. He was trying to find those that were willing to work towards peace. From those humble beginnings, they turned him into what some called Green Jesus. He was teaching the freaking dragon aspects on how to be aspects. And sure, there's something to be said about learning through the eyes of mortals, but for me, they took him a little bit too far. He became a little bit too large of a character, so yeah, I'm alright with Thrall taking a step back for a while. Will the story of Warcraft and the direction eventually change now that Metzens is no longer on the team? I'd say so, but I don't think that we're seeing those effects during Legion. This one could have easily followed up directly after Mr. Pandaria, so I'd say that his vision, that's still very prominent during this one. I guess that the point that I'm trying to make is that we often look for a single reason to pinpoint something that we don't like, right? But in the case of the story development, I don't agree with the mindset that one person leaving suddenly spells the end of days for the story. You can dislike it, of course. Everybody has their own taste, and some would say that the story's become worse ever since Warcraft 1. But to link it to one single reason or cause, nah, I don't agree with that. Last question. Hey Noble, love your vids. They help me keep up to date with WoW when I'm too busy to play, smiley face. Anyways, my question is, are K'Thun and Yogg-saron actually dead? Did we really kill them in those raids? And if not, how can we kill them? I feel like the world on Azeroth needs to be completely freed of them eventually. K'Thun and Yogg-saron are not actually dead. All we faced off against in those raids, that was a teeny tiny physical representation that was able to squeeze out of their prison. The real old gods, those are still imprisoned beneath the world. Now from the comics, we learned that K'Thun, he was still able to order Cho'Gall around and whisper sweet things in his ears, while Yogg-saron's influence, that actually showed up again around the start of Legion. The only old god that we truly took care of, that was the old god Y'Shaarj, who first was ripped out of the planet by the Titans, leaving a massive wound behind, a wound that they covered up with the Well of Eternity. As the Titans ripped him out, little pieces fell back onto the world. The biggest and most prominent one, that was his heart, which the Keepers decided to imprison beneath the land of Pandaria. Fast forward a few millennia, and we end up with Garrosh finding the heart, using its powers completely until there's nothing left. The only old god that's still a bit of a mystery that we haven't seen yet and not directly faced, that would be N'Zoth. Can we completely kill them? That's hard to say. Their infection has rooted so deep that taking care of them when the Titans did them, it actually hurts the world and the Titan soul inside. The Titans, they did believe that with time, with the right nourishment and protection, that the world soul did have a chance against the old gods, but that was a whole long time ago.
Her heart is a crater, and we have filled it. At the hour of her third death, she ushers in our coming.
If we link the whispers to Azeroth, perhaps her first death was with the Sundering at the end of the War of the Ancients, where the Well of Eternity imploded and the land of Kalimdor split apart. Her second death, that would be the Shattering, with the Black Dragon Deathwing breaking out of the world, trying to bring about the Hour of Twilight. Her third death, that could potentially be the Old Gods breaking out of their prisons, but as most of what we talked about today, it's just speculation. From the Chronicles, it does seem that when a Titan soul wakes up, that the planet itself becomes their body, which would mean that if Azeroth truly ever wakes up, we would no longer have a planet to party on. I'd rather have them go with a Titan leaving an empty shell behind. That way the spirit can wake up, become a full-fledged Titan, and we still have a world to play on. Can you imagine Azeroth being half beautiful and perfect and half gruesome and corrupted? It would look so freaking cool to see that be a thing, but only time will tell. Impossible to say if we'll ever be able to get rid of the old gods, but perhaps we will have a chance to see what it's like to have the Black Empire rule the world. Like the Titans and their keepers, we will have to face the darkness and wage war with the Empire, trying to push them back or even take care of them. They could even add the mysterious realm of Nyalova in this expansion, whatever that might be, getting us ready to face against the forces of the Void Lords.
N'Zoth, I journey to Nyalova.
I will say this though, no matter what story might come next, I do feel like they need to set some time apart to build up new stories and characters. If we truly deal with the old gods in Azeroth, then there will be only one major threat left that we're aware of, the Void Lords, and maybe the Great Dark Beyond, but after that, there's nothing really major. Of course, they can always go back to the old faction war and have us deal with that, but I would love to see something like a Warcraft 4 on the horizon. There are always limitations when telling a story within the setting of World of Warcraft. No matter what, people will always need their factions to play in, and at the end of the day, we are going to win. They do have creative freedom as to what road is going to lead to that end destination, but in a setting of an RTS, they just have a lot more freedom to play with. Cities and kingdoms, they can actually fall, new factions can rise up, there could be actual change to take place, and despite knowing that they can always come up with a new Mr. Pandaria, build up new lore from scratch, I would love to see more added to the foundation, new stories added to the pool of what they can work with. Ah well, only time will tell I suppose, but this is where we're going to wrap up the Q&A, and I hope it sounds alright, because I have not slept yet. But what can you do? If you want some more details on what they could do with Kul'tiras and the future expansion, check out the video that I've done with Krendor before, which I'll link on screen right now. A whole lot of you have asked about the next expansion, so I figured I would dedicate a Q&A to it. If you have any questions for me, it might be about the next expansion, might be about recent characters. Whatever you want to ask, leave them in the comments down below, and I might use them for the next video. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and on to the next one, guys. See ya!